and welcome to this third part of my talks about the Tree of Life, the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. In my last part, I talked about mostly the first sefirah and the link with the second sefirah, Chokhmah, and I concluded that talk by saying that in this talk, the third talk, I would talk more about Chokhmah, wisdom, the second sefirah, the second divine emanation that is part of the Tree of Life, and that in that talk I would incorporate the Tetragrammaton, the four-lettered most holy name of God, written Ehuyeh, Vav-Hey. Now, I said that I would include this name because there's a few different ways that this name pertains specifically to Chokhmah, to the second sefirah, but also because it's such a big topic that I thought it was a good idea to include the more the other branches of understanding of the Tetragrammaton at this point, because there's so many big topics related to the Sefirot and to the Tree of Life that if I would deal with all of them in one go, it would be a bit too much. And I thought at this point it's good to talk more about the Tree of Life and its link to the Tetragrammaton. Now, as I said in my last talk, the Tetragrammaton, written Ehuyeh, Vav-Hey. So it's the four-lettered name, the four-lettered holy name. Ehuyeh, Vav-Hey, starting with the 10th letter, then the 5th letter, then the 6th letter, and the 5th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. This name is seen as the base of the 10 Sefirot, the 10 main emanations of the Godhead. Now, each letter is the base for one or more of those Sefirot. Now, the first letter Yud, that inverted comma, or it looks like a comma actually a bit, this letter here, the Yud, the 10th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, is said to be related to the first two Sefirot, so to both Keter, that I did one talk about already, and related to Chokhmah. Now, usually it's seen to represent the shape of the human brain, with the tip of it being related more to Keter, and then the bottom more to Chokhmah, as in this scheme of things, also as the head of the spinal column as such. Now, the spinal column in itself then is related to the snake, but that's a whole different topic. The snake and pranayama and the chakras and things like this. But this is more the Hindu conception of these subjects. Now, the fact that one letter of the Tetragrammaton, the Yud, the 10th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, that first letter is related to two Sefirot, means that there's also quite a big overlap in the character of those two divine emanations. Now, Keter is usually seen as the one. Chokhmah is called the first. I've explained in another talk why this terminology. There are other reasons why Chokhmah is very closely related to Keter. One of these reasons is the secret of the reflection, the divine reflection that I've talked about already. And another reason is that Chokhmah is the potential of duality. So in Keter we have no duality. Metaphysically, there is no duality there. It's the one. But Chokhmah is the beginning. Wisdom is the beginning of duality, but in a potential sense. Now, as such, Chokhmah has an overlap with Keter. Now, kabbalistically, usually the phrase that is used to explain this or to refer to this is Job 28:12, where it's written, from where does wisdom stem? From where and wisdom there, me'ain and Chokhmah in Hebrew. Chokhmah, we know, that's the name of the sefirah, the second sefirah, wisdom. Me'ain, translated into English usually as from where. Kabbalists, however, read this word as me'ain, from ein. And then ein, that particle ein, is seen to refer to Ein Sof, which is endlessness, which again is limitlessness and has overlaps with Keter in certain books. As such, Chokhmah is also partly Keter. So it's unattainable. That's usually what it's said about Chokhmah. You can't attain it with mind, with thought, and it has, to a large extent, it has qualities that it shares with Keter. And I talked about that when I was talking about existence and the numerical values of Keter, 620, and then being existence, being Yesh, 310. But I've talked about this in another talk of this series. So just to say that the first letter Yud of the Tetragrammaton, the first letter, pertains to two sefirot, Keter and Chokhmah. Now the second letter, which is the first Hey of the Tetragrammaton, the Tetragrammaton has two Heys, one Hey there and one Hey there. The first Hey is linked to the third sefirah, the one after Chokhmah, which is Bina, the mother. So Chokhmah is often called the father, Bina there is the mother. Together they then bring forth the other sefirot. Now, Bina is entirely feminine, as the letter Hey is entirely feminine. It's usually said to be the letter with which all of our present world is created, and our present world also entirely feminine. So overlaps here with Hinduism, where all of phenomenology is Shakti, which is feminine as well. The third letter of the Tetragrammaton, the Vav, the letter in between, the two Heys that look similar but pertain to completely different concepts. They're related to completely different concepts. The Vav is also in grammatically meaning the word and in Hebrew. So it couples that and that together to then relate to that. That's a bit of a different way of looking at it. As a letter, it has, the Vav is the sixth letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and as such it refers to the next six sefirot. So of the 10 sefirot here, Keter and Chokhmah, the Yud, and the first Hey of the Tetragrammaton Bina, and then the next six, all of them, as an intermediary with the last Hey, which is Malchut. So the next six, because the Vav has the numerical value 6, and as such refers to 6 Sefirot. Now, like I said, then the second Hey, the last Hey, which is the same letter as the second letter, refers to Malchut, which is the kingdom Malchut, here the last one. Our present world, entirely feminine, a Hey like Bina. Bina also called the mother, and Malchut then is called the daughter. So the mother and the daughter have a strong connection linked by means of the Vav. Now in this way, the Tetragrammaton is seen as the base of all the 10 Sefirot. But there's more to be said about this, because the Tetragramma is basically endless. It's not something that is supposed to be understood in a linear way. Also, not the Sefirot are not supposed to be understood in a linear way. If we talk about the first and the second and the third, this is not meant to be sequential. It's meant to denote the numbers as numerical living beings that are limitless. That's always how they're referred to in Kabbalistic books. They don't really have limits or names. We just use those names to refer to them, and they're not supposed to be understood as a linear, a sequential, or in a linear or sequential way. So in that way, the Tetragrammaton functions in different ways, in different directions, and into different realms. And that's what I wanted to talk about more. Now, because the Tetragrammaton is so big, it was originally only pronounced by the high priest only one day in the year, and that in the temple in Jerusalem, before the destruction of the temple. Now it's called the ineffable name, as in the name that is not to be pronounced, cannot be pronounced, even though the Jehovah Witnesses, for example, pronounce the name as Jehovah. That's a way to pronounce those 4 letters. Now, even though we're not supposed to pronounce it, of course, to Kabbalists, a name with so many powers, attracted them and was fascinating. So we do read in Kabbalistic practical Kabbalah and books of practical Kabbalah, we do read about Kabbalists using the name and pronouncing the name. We read, for example, about wrapping yourself in the Tetragrammaton as protection, or wrapping yourself in the Tetragrammaton to attain certain states of mind. We also read about the 4 letters of the Tetragrammaton being combined with all the vowels that we have in Hebrew, and doing that in quick succession with specific ways of breathing. So here we have Hatha Yoga coming in a way. And as such, the Kabbalists attained specific mystical experiences that were visual and audio as well. Now, here we come onto the topic of pronouncing the Tetragrammaton in different ways. Now, that's the next topic I wanted to address, because in Kabbalah we have 4 different ways of writing out the Tetragrammaton. Now, the Tetragrammaton in its own is like this. It's just the Yud, the Hey, the Vav, Hey. These are the numerical values, the total numerical value. You add these, total numerical value of the Tetragrammaton, hence, is 26. But there's 4 different ways of writing these letters. Sorry, that's the wind. 4 different ways of writing these letters. Now the yud you can only write in one way, which is when you writing, meaning that you don't just write the letter, but you write the whole sound. So yud, so the y, the u, and the d. The yud you can only do in one way. But these 2 letters, and the one of course is doubled, so really we're talking about the 2 letters hey and vav, can be written in different ways. And this pertains to the different pronunciations, the different spellings of the Tetragrammaton. Now the different ways that are being written, they can be written with a hey, double hey, vav hey. They can be written with a yud, and they can be written with the alephs. Those 3 letters, aleph, hey, and yud. So what we're using here to pronounce or to make the different spellings of the Tetragrammaton, the most important name, the different spellings are made by means of the name Ehuyeh, I am, which is the name that God used in answer to Moses when Moses asked what his name was. Ehuyeh, Asher Ehuyeh, I am that I am. This name belongs as a divine name to the first sefirah Keter, but when we're pronouncing this name, when we're writing the Tetragrammaton in different ways, then we're using these 3 letters. Again, here the hey is doubled, as you can see. Aleph, hey, yud, aleph. We're using the aleph, the hey, and the yud to write, to pronounce these letters. So what you're really seeing here, apart from the linguistic technique, what you're seeing here is that the 2 most important names, the Tetragrammaton and Ehuyeh, I am that I am, start combining. And because Kabbalah is linguistic mysticism, the idea here is, or the conviction here is, that when these powers, the different letters are being pronounced together, things start to be created. It's the resonance, it's the energy of these sounds together that make for the world, and in this case for the different worlds. Now, to start with the highest world, that's the first pronunciation of the Tetragrammaton. Now, like I said, this letter you can only write in one way. These 2 you can write in different ways. Now, the first way of writing that is by using the yud. So you write hey yud, vav yud vav. The vav has 2 vavs when you pronounce it, and again the hey yud. So then you use the yud, which really is this yud. It's the yud of I am, the yud of Ehuyeh, the yud of that is which it is, the absolute being. That's what's being used to pronounce these letters, to express these letters. So the first way of doing that is by the yud. The yud is the first letter of the Tetragrammaton as well. So it's the most abstract, the most ephemeral pronunciation. This is the world of Atzilut, called nearness, the nearest to God, the nearest to nothingness, the nearest to the void. So that's the first way of pronouncing it, by just using the yud. The second way of pronouncing it is by also using the aleph. So the aleph, as the first letter of the name Ehuyeh, I am, is now used to pronounce the letter vav. So instead of using the yud, now the letter aleph is used, making for a different sound, hence making for a different resonance, different energetic charge, and that means a different world. So we're going from using the yud, always pointing at the Tetragrammaton, and hence the most spiritual, and in this case also denoting the one. We're going to using the aleph in one case only, that denoting the first, but kind of the potential of the first as well, like Chokhmah is the potential of duality. This world that's then created as a result of that energetic charge is the world of creation, Bria, called Bria. Now, whereas the sefirot on their own pertain to specific numerical powers, they're also part of this process. So the world of Atzilut, the first world called nearness, the sefirah, the power that is most prominent there is Chokhmah. And in the second world of Bria, starting with the Beit, the second is the Beit is the second letter of the Hebrew alphabet. In this case, the power, the overriding power is that of Bina, also the Beit, also the onset of duality. So as we see, also the Sefirot have many different implications, and they work in different ways. Even in this case, they're almost used as of they're creating themselves as well. So there's no linearity, there's no really any rationality here. That makes it hard That's what makes it hard to talk about these topics. But this is the second world. So using the Aleph as the first before we use the Yud as the one. Now, the third way of pronouncing or of writing out the Tetragrammaton is by using the Aleph in all three cases, for the Hey, for the Yud, and for the Hey. So we're writing the Hey with the Aleph, making for the sound Hey. We're writing the Vav with the Aleph in the middle, Vav, Aleph, Vav, making for the sound Vav. And then again the Hey with the Aleph, making for the sound Hey. Now this third world, the third way of pronouncing the Tetragrammaton, is the world of formation, Yetzirah. It's the third world of the four worlds, according to the four letters, according to the four pronunciations of the Tetragrammaton. Now the name Yetzirah, the word Yetzirah probably sounds familiar. It's also used in Sefer Yetzirah. That's why I always say Sefer Yetzirah is really the book of formation, not the book of creation. If it would have been the book of creation, it would have been Sefer Bria and not Sefer Yetzirah. This is the third world. Things are becoming more material. So these worlds are pertaining to things like the angels, and then all the time more material implications when the letters used are more material as well. It's a development in that case, if you can talk about it like that at all. Now the fourth and last pronunciation of the Tetragrammaton, in that case only the Hey is used. This is the world of doing, Asiya, doing, Asiya. The Hey is written with double Hey, the Va and here also with a double Hey. As such we see the double Hey, and of course that's also the double Hey of the Tetragrammaton itself, the last Hey always pertaining to Malchut, our world. So here the Hey, femininity, is becoming more strongly pronounced, and that's also the lowest word. The closer we come to our world, the more feminine it becomes, and the more expressed, the more manifested it becomes. Now, as a result of these different spellings, of these different ways of pronouncing the Tetragrammaton, of course, we have different numerical values. If you start using different letters, the numerical charges change, and this has implications as well. So let me now talk about that, and then we'll come back to Chokhmah as an overall conclusion, really, the second sefirah that in the back of my mind I'm talking about in this case. Now, the first spelling of the Tetragrammaton, where only the Yud is used, adds up to the number or numerical value 72. So in this case we write Yud Vav Dalet, which is the Yud, and then Yud Vav Yud Vav Hey Yud. The way using the Yud to pronounce the Tetragrammaton, meaning employing this Yud of I am, which is a very esoteric name, and as a result of that, worlds, in this case the world of the angels, is being formed. Like I said, the numerical value here is 72. This now is why the 72 lettered name is also important. Just to say, every time something happens, every time letters combine, there are reverberations in all different directions, sometimes even backwards. So if we think like, yeah, but this was first, there is no before and first, because there's no time in the spiritual world. So everything works in all different directions. Like when you drop a stone in the water, the circles go in all directions, not just in one direction. Now the 72 lettered name, I've talked about this before, is the name in Exodus 14, 19 to 21. 3 verses, each having 72 letters, and hence really it is the 216 lettered name. Now, like I said in my last talk about counting from 1 to 10, when a mystic counts from 1 to 10, again, all the numbers are implied. They're waiting to be manifested. You can feel them pushing all the time. And in this case, we feel the Trinity, because the 72 lettered name features 3 times. So already we have the Trinity, we have the 3. Of course, again, pointing instantly to the 3 letters with which the Tetragrammaton is written, even though one is doubled, to the 3 times, in this case, the 3 particles of the name I am that I am, to the 3 times the Aleph here, as these 3 words, the 3 is stirring. So as a Trinity, the 3 is stirring, which means Bina, the mother, the third sefirah, is also ready to be manifested. But we stick to the 72 for now. So the 72 pointing at the 3, but really still related to Chokhmah, because the first world of the first world of Atzilut, the world of nearness, has as its overriding power Chokhmah, wisdom, the most ephemeral, really, apart from Keter, of all the sefirot. Now, this is related to Chokhmah in the following way. In these 216 letters, so the 3 times 72 lettered name in Exodus 14, 90 to 21, 3 verses having 72 letters. All the letters of the Hebrew alphabet are present. All the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet are present, but for the Gimel. The Gimel is the 3rd letter. So like I said, once something starts happening, it happens in all directions. So the 3rd letter, numerical value 3, the 3 is also present here, also referring again or connected again or coming forth from the Trinity, the 3 times 72 lettered name. Now, the Gimel as a letter, when you spell it out, G-M-L, Gimel, has the numerical value 73, and that's the numerical value of Chokhmah, the 2nd sefirah. So again, everything is connected. But this is now how it is all connected in the first world, which is the first spelling of the 4-lettered name, the Tetragrammaton, the name of names, as it's called. Now, the second spelling of this name, the second way of pronouncing this name, which makes for the second world, the world of Bria, the world of creation, has the numerical value 63. Now, again, this is tied in with everything else because, for example, 63 is the numeric value also of these 3 particles of I am that I am. The name Ehuyeh that is being used to pronounce the Tetragrammaton. Ehuyeh is 21, Ehuyeh is 21. Asher is 501, but 500 is also the numerical value of the letter Chet as a final letter. This is a bit of a topic, but I can't go into that now. So the Chet as a final letter is, the Chaf as a final letter is 500, but as a simple letter it's 20, and hence that makes 21. So 3 times 21 as an imprint of the name I am that I am. And that imprint, 63, then again is related to the second world, which has as its total numerical value, that spelling of the Tetragrammaton has as its total numerical value 63. So there we have the 63. Now the numerical value of the 3rd pronunciation, and hence the 3rd world, which is the world of formation, is 45. Now 45, of course, we instantly recognize as part of the sefirah Chokhmah. So sometimes the process is linking itself or comes forth from the first sefirah Keter with the name I am that I am. Sometimes we see Chokhmah, then we see Keter again, and then we see Chokhmah again. Again, pointing at the fact that Chokhmah, wisdom, very closely related to Keter, big overlap, even though it's also the onset of duality in potentiality. And Bina, the mother then, of course the mother, from the mother the more material things go forth. 45, because Chokhmah can spell Koachmah. Koach being potential, I talked about this in one of my other talks. Ma having the numerical value 45. So here, already in Chokhmah, also the potential of the 45 is present. The potential of the 45, in this case, the potential of the 3rd world of formation, already potentially present in wisdom, because of course everything else that comes after it flows forth from that power. Also, here we have the concept of the macrocosm and the microcosm. In Hinduism, Brahman and Atma. Many traditions have this: big, small, everything that's existent in creation, in existence in general, is existent in man, in human in this case. So the word Adam is 45. Adam in this case being human, not man, being human. So Adam Katmon, original man, is the idea of man or human as a Platonic image, or as the original of what later then becomes human in particular, human in particular, as it starts in Genesis. So here also we have the 45 already present in Chokhmah, in the 2nd sefirah Chokhmah, wisdom. Now the last of the spellings of the Tetragrammaton is, like I said, is the spelling in which only the Hey is used to read out the other letters, apart from the Yud that's never changes. God is the unmoved mover, is not being moved. The Yud usually pertains to Keter as the 10th sefirah from below, from our world as well. Now, when we're using the Hey to write out these other letters, the total numerical value of the name it's usually called the Tetragrammaton, becomes 52. Now, just as the Tetragrammaton itself has 2 Heys, and the second Hey being a manifestation of our world, this 52 points at the doubling, as this Hey is doubled, like the Hey is doubled here in I am that I am, like I am is doubled here. I talked about in the first part of this series about the reflection of the Godhead as an expression of the onset of creation. In this case, the potentiality really of creation is the first step, which is Chokhmah. So, whereas the Hey doubles inside the Tetragrammaton, and the Hey, the 5th letter, Hey, doubles in I am that I am as well. When Malchut, our world, is being manifested, the last sefirah Malchut is being manifested, this is the manifestation of the second Hey. First Hey in Bina, second Hey in Malchut. And this doubling now, we also see in the total numerical value of the last world, Asiya, because that's 52, which is twice the Tetragrammaton. So in this case, the doubling expresses itself as the doubling of the Tetragrammaton itself. So now we have the numerical value 52. The 52 refers, of course, to other things as well. For one, it's not just twice 26, it's also 4 times 13. And this again then refers to the unity of all these things. Like I said, it's hard to talk about these matters, because if you even use one letter and you start talking about one letter, so many other things are included that usually it's better to just go back to just being the observer, and after a while the observer and the observed become one, and that's the experience of Kabbalah when that happens. When you talk about Kabbalah, it's a different thing. So in Sefer Yetzirah, the book of formation, it said, when the mind starts to run, return to the place. But this place is another word for God, which is unity. So the Tetragrammaton doubled, 52, the numerical value of the last kabbalistic world of doing, also refers to this through 4 times 13. 13, namely, is also the numerical value of the word Echad, which means one. So it's 4 times unity. So the 4 letters of the Tetragrammaton, the 4 letters of the name Ehuyeh, all really are one. We're really only talking about unity, but we have to talk about it, and hence the branches, the tentacles, go in all directions. Now, the last thing here that is implied is also 4 times love, because the 4, as 4 times 13, also points at 4 times love. Love, ahava in Hebrew, also has the numerical value 13. And on top of that, as the 4th sefirah, because we're talking about 4 times 13, the 4th sefirah is chesed, and chesed is also love and mercy. Chesed here, the 4th sefirah, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, chesed, love. So also here we have 4 times love pertaining to the Tetragrammaton, the 4-lettered name, pertaining to the 4th letter, and kabbalistically always pointing at the world in general, because it's stated in the Torah that the world was built on love. Now all these things and the unity of them in Chokhmah already is often referred to in Kabbalah by the name belonging to Chokhmah. So every sefirah also has a divine name related to it or affiliated with it. Like I said, Keter has the name, the highest sefirah, Keter, has this name, I am that I am. I am, Asher Ehuyeh, I am that I am. The name belonging to Chokhmah is Jah, the Rastafarian Jah, written only Yud, Hey, the first 2 letters of the Tetragrammaton. In Kabbalah it's said that Chokhmah is half the name. It is said so because it is really half the name. It's 2 letters of the 4-lettered name, but it also means that it's still the unity before duality commences. So before the doubling has started to take place and has its material effects and phenomenology starts coming into being, the Jah, Yud, He, is also just the 2 letters of the 4-lettered name. As such, also half the name being the Tetragrammaton in total. And lastly, it is half the name, because Yud and He, when you write them out, Yud is 20 because it's the Yud, the Vav, and the Dalet. Together, these three letters have the numerical values 10, 6, and 4. Together make 20. And He, when it's written traditionally with the Aleph, it has the numerical value 6. As such, Jah, the Rastafarian Jah, the half the name, has the total numerical value when you write the letters out, 26, which matches the 26 of the total Tetragrammaton. Now I'd like to conclude or end the talk here, because there's a lot going on, just to say that the Tetragrammaton, the different worlds coming forth from the different spellings, the different ways of pronouncing this most holy name, always are linked to Chokhmah as well as the beginning of it. And the different worlds are implied in both Chokhmah and Keter. And in the next talk on this topic, the topic of the Tree of Life in general, I'd like to include Bina, the third sefirah, Bina. Now Bina, of course, is the mother. So I will be talking, here we have Bina. Now we've talked about Keter and Chokhmah, how they overlap, how they are in a sense one entity, but still divided. How Chokhmah is the potential of duality. Now in Bina, we have the activation of duality. So in the next talk, I'll be addressing Bina, also called the mother, her relationship with Chokhmah, how the other sefirot come forth from the mother and the father, the unison of the mother and the father, and the divine name that is linked to Bina, which is the name Elohim. And how we see in Elohim as well that the male and the female are united. Like in India, the lingam and the yoni are always united. The name Elohim is an androgynous name, male and female. And this is the deity, this is the power with which Genesis starts, with which creation is really being activated. And it manifests through this name that is male and female. And that's going to be the next talk. So thank you for your interest, and Namaste.